nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We're very excited to have such a big crowd here. We knew that the board meetings were exciting, and we're really glad that you came to join us. Our first order of business, may I have a motion, please, that the agenda of Tuesday, October 7th, 2014 be approved as submitted.
Second.
Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. May I have a motion, please, that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. And it is now time for our special reports. So, Dr. Putnam.
Thank you. We have 2 special reports today, and then we'll start the official parts of the board meeting. And I'm going to ask that everybody who's here for the special report stays until we get through both of them, and then the board's going to take a brief break just so we can do some congratulations as well. And so first, if I could have Coach David Hennessy come on up here. Just right there, yes. And I have just a couple of brief words to sort of introduce this, but then we have students from both the girls and boys cross-country team that are going to say a few words on your behalf. And so we're just here to congratulate a longtime PHS cross-country coach, Dave Hennessy, on earning his 1,000th win with the boys and girls varsity cross-country teams combined. Coach Hennessy reached his 500th win with the boys team in early September and reached the same milestone with the girls team on September 23rd when we were right here in a board meeting. So we found out right afterwards that you had won. And so just congratulations on behalf of the entire district and all the students and staff. We really appreciate the hard work you put in. And congratulations. I'm going to turn it over actually to the girls cross-country team. And I just want to note, too, for the board, so if you're not aware, our own Aubrey Masters is also a member of that girls cross-country team. So we're really happy that you're here. If the girls want to come up, and before you present the words you have, you can come up. You can come up. But before you present, there's a microphone. Could we have all the girls who are here who are on the team, could you just quickly pass the mic around and just introduce yourself? Just your name and what grade you're in?
I'm Reagan, and I'm in 8th grade. I'm Mackenzie. I'm a junior. I'm Elena, and I'm in 8th grade.
I'm Sage. I'm a junior.
I'm Charlotte. I'm a freshman.
I'm Claire. I'm a junior.
I'm Tori. I'm a junior.
I'm Abby. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Joy. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Meredith. I'm a sophomore.
And so we'll turn it over to the girls cross-country team.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Abby Borsey, and I'd like to thank the Board of Education for honoring Coach Hennessy and inviting Megan Sedita and I to speak on behalf of the girls cross-country team. Between Megan and I, we have 29 consecutive seasons with Hen, so perhaps he thought we'd have some perspective to share. In talking to a few of our teammates about his event, a number of Hen's one-liners came up again and again.
So we decided to share with you our Hen's top 10, along with our interpretation of what he has taught us about running in life.
When we mean one-liners, we don't mean things that are just said once and we thought they were a good saying. We mean these are things that he says every single day and repeated season after season.
So number 10, this is something that all of our girls have heard him say before. If you die, you die.
That sounds a little scary, but it is helpful. Before races, it just reminds us that failure is not to be feared and we can go out and give it our all and not be afraid. Number 9, oftentimes when one of us is injured or sick and we go to Hen and we tell him, like, I don't think I'm good enough to run, I don't think I can do this, he always supports us and he always puts his arm around us and he says, who's your buddy? Who's your pal?
This shows us that he takes our problems really seriously and he doesn't push us to do anything that we don't feel comfortable with. Number 8. Before any banquet or big meet, there's always certificates that we get sometimes that show our accomplishments. So he always says, everyone wants a certificate signed by me, suitable for framing.
I think this is a really important aspect to the program because even if a kid could only run one race that season or they ran all of them, everybody gets recognized and everybody feels important. And I know that that's really important to me, and the certificates signed by Hen, suitable for framing, are something that I'm going to keep the rest of my life and always remember. Number 7, before any big event that Hen wants us to come to, he always says, and don't forget, the always popular, for example, meet the coaches night / Hen's pasta party / team picnic.
We can always count on the Labor Day picnic and Hen's pasta party before Clarence. He really establishes tradition, and we know that each season we're going to make new memories with these events. Number 6 is something that we have all heard during the race. Hen will always say, look up and join the party.
People from other teams have actually come up to me and been like, what in the world was your coach telling you about a party? Like, what does he mean by that? But it always makes me laugh during races because it just reminds us that we have to apply ourselves then and now. The race is happening now, and if we don't focus, it's going to pass us by. And I think that applies to life too. If we don't apply ourselves now and focus, it's going to pass us by just like the race. Number 5, this one goes out to a certain girl on our team, Sage. Before every distance run, Hen never fails to remind Sage, no going to linear park, Sage.
Because we've been running for so many years on the perimeter, we occasionally venture off property, and we always know we're going to get in trouble. And when Hen catches us, he always gives us the same talk, talking about safety first and how we really have to follow the rules. So, number 4, Hen tells us this when we're trying to, he's trying to convince us to do something new, whether it's a new race strategy or a new event. He always says, I got your back, buddy.
This always makes us feel safe to take chances because we know that whatever we do, he's behind us, supporting us 100%. Number 3, this may be the most hated phrase of any Penfield runner in history. It is when Hen stands on the top of the hill and says, run 10 minutes, then meet me on the track. You know things are getting serious.
When we hear this, we know it's going to be a really difficult day, but when we get through it and when it's all done, we always feel really accomplished, and we know that he's just trying to push us to be the best that we can be. So number 2 is when we want to do something out of the ordinary, and he says yes, he always says, why? 'Cause I like you.
It reminds us that our opinion matters to him and that he takes what we say seriously and that he likes us, which is good. And last but not least, number 1, almost every day when we're all sitting in the circle and everybody's tired and it's been a long school day and we're waiting to hear what our workout is, he always looks at one kid and goes, would it kill you to smile?
I love this one because it really shows that Hen has a serious side, but at the same time, he keeps it light and just a positive attitude for everyone. And so we think that all of these have just contributed to the success of our running program, and we couldn't have done it without him.
We'd like to thank Hen for the lessons and the laughter and are grateful that he chose to spend his career here in Penfield. That's it.
So we'll have Coach Hennessy stay, and a member of the boys' cross-country team is going to come up. And while you're coming up to introduce yourself, could you pass that microphone to the boys that are here? Just a name and what grade you're in.
He showed up late, folks. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Hi, my name is Matt Mezzapreti. I'm a junior.
My name is Tyler Chanel. I'm a freshman.
My name is Bradley Farnham. I'm a sophomore.
My name is Jack Galuli. I am a senior.
I'm Max Battaglia. I'm a sophomore.
I'm Virgil Aquano. I'm a sophomore.
I'm John Polano. I'm a freshman.
Andy Frank, 8th grader.
I think you're on.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jonathan Novak. I'm a senior, and this is my 10th season with Hen. It's really been an honor to run, and I'd like to thank him, and I'd also like to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to speak. Hen really inspires us to run each day, and even on Sundays when I really don't want to run and watch football. I'm my speech is not going to be as good as the girls. They did really well. But I think it was quote number 8 that really sticks with me, when you die, you die. That's something he told me as a freshman. I think it was winter track. And it really stuck with me because it kind of, I don't know, it's kind of my personal motto is what happens, happens, is I guess they're synonymous. And it puts me in perspective of I have to perform the way I want to perform, and every day gives me the opportunity to do that, and it's really been an honor. I know I'm speaking for all the boys team and girls when we are just so blessed to run with Hen and the coaches, Coach Schneider and Coach Stokes and Coach Fabiano and the other coaches. But yeah, and thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
If you have any words to say, you might be speechless after those 2 wonderful presentations, but thank you very much for all that you've done for our students in Penfield and the district.
Well, I want to thank, the opportunity to coach here for some 30-plus years. I've been blessed with a large number of outstanding athletes, both presently and as well as in the past. Thinking back, I can actually remember the gang of 9 that I had my first year, and actually 2 of them occasionally I see in this area. They live in the district. But I've also been blessed, with the support of the athletic directors, both currently and in the past. With Jim Cleveland, I gained a lot of pounds because Aunt Mary fed me after meets on Saturday. So, looking back and reflecting, there are a lot of great memories, and I'm very appreciative for the opportunity to coach here for so many years. And contrary to rumors, I'm not really thinking of retiring anytime soon. So I guess that's good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're going to ask the cross-country teams just to stay for our second special report. And as I mentioned, the board will have a brief break, so you can leave if you want. You're more than welcome to stay through the whole meeting because they are exciting.
Yeah, before we move on to our special report, just want you to know how excited we are that you are here. It's not often that we have students who are here, and that's really what it's all about, why we are here every other Tuesday looking at spreadsheets and talking about all kind of important things, but it's really about you and about people who inspire you, like Coach Hennessy, and we've seen his name numerous times in the paper or on the website or here and there, but it's just so exciting to be able to have you here. What I do want to ask is that the members of your coaching team, if you can introduce yourself so that we know who is here.
So we need maybe we get the microphone to the coaches. That'd be great.
I'm Doug Schneider.
I'm Kathy Stokes.
I'm Mike Sennett.
I'm done.
Okay, well, thank you for coming this evening, and thank you for making us so proud. It's when we look at you and all the red, black, and white, we're really, really proud of you. So thank you for all your hard work, and coaches, thank you for inspiring them. Thank you so much.
So for our second special report this evening, if we could have Don Bavis as principal of Cobbles come down, or anybody else you need to bring down with you. You have a lot of people there, but yes. So just on behalf of the board and the district, we wanted to make this very public and known that Cobbles Elementary School has been named a 2014 National Blue Ribbon School by the U.S. Department of Education. Cobbles is one of 337 schools to earn the designation this year and one of 289 being recognized for overall academic excellence as an exemplary high-performing school. And honorees, including Don, will be recognized at a ceremony in Washington, D.C. in November. We have 4 amazing elementary schools. As people know, because I say it, I live in the district. I love this district. We have 4 great schools. We have students that come from all 4 of those schools into the middle school and in the high school. But tonight, we get to honor one of those, which is Cobbles, and their ability to win that blue ribbon honor. And it's just such a great piece to be part of Penfield and what we can put there. So thank you, Don. And in the background, if you can't tell, we have a great number of Cobble staff that came out on a Tuesday night to support Don, support the school, and to support the blue ribbon. So that's wonderful.
Right, so can we ask those staff members to stand up? And if you could introduce yourself also. We don't get to see everyone all the time, so wow. Oh, wow.
So afterwards, we're going to have to count if there's more cross-country or more Cobbles teachers.
I'm Susan Vatican. I'm the art teacher at Cobbles.
I'm Lou Duran. I teach 2nd grade.
Kim Marshall, 1st grade. Nicole Whitehead, I used to teach at Cobbles. I'm still employed by the district.
Carol Miller, secretary.
Ann McCarthy, computer lab TA.
Kathy Stoll, 2nd grade.
Lisa Allen, literacy specialist.
Kim Osgood, special education teacher.
Carol Weedman, teaching assistant.
Wayne Smith, physical education.
Mary Dooley, hall monitor.
Mary Welliver, administrative assistant.
Jean Wood-Eric, school counselor.
Julie Knapp, 4th grade.
Janet Conant, classroom music.
Mary Manuel, classroom music.
Diane Bradley, speech language pathologist.
Eliza Coyle, English for speakers of other languages. Sue Hodge, 3rd grade.
Brittany Sauter, 5th grade substitute.
Lisa Rivniak, 3rd grade.
Jackie Suchanik, kindergarten.
Jackie Plusio, kindergarten.
Terry Erkel, 3rd grade.
Ann Krause, literacy specialist.
Jane Sorowski, math specialist.
Kelly Limbeck, speech language pathologist.
Carrie West, kindergarten special education.
Joyce Beiswinger, special ed secretary.
Leanne Townsend, literacy specialist.
Sarah Welsh, math specialist. Andrea Lighthouse, school psychologist.
That's great.
Wow.
So Don, thank you, and Cobble staff, thank you so much for being here. I don't know if you've got a couple of words, Don, but.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. I want to thank the board for taking the opportunity to recognize our accomplishment here tonight, and I'd like to thank the greater Penfield area also for supporting the schools so much. Even though I'm sitting at the table up here, I'm glad you got everyone to stand up. As you can see, I have an outstanding staff, and they're the ones that are truly deserving of the recognition they got tonight. So I'm glad they all came out, and you saw we had a very wide variety of people because it takes all of us to have that kind of success. So thank you very much.
Right.
Don, thank you very much.
Don and all the members of the Cobbles community who are here and not here, thank you again. I mean, whether we're proud about the cross-country team or robotics, 2 weeks ago, or Cobbles, I'm so glad that we can finally tell, everyone that Cobbles is a blue ribbon school. I'm still thinking about the day where you told me, oh, don't tell anyone, it's still embargo. You can't tell anybody. And had to wait all this time, but this is very, very exciting for us. It's a huge testimony to the amazing work you do and, all your dedication to the students. So thank you so much. Thank you for making us look so good. And I think we're going to break for a little bit. And board members, if you want to go congratulate someone or, say hello, but don't go too far. We have a big agenda. All right. Welcome back again. Thank you for the members for staying. All right. Now we are on page 2 of our agenda, visitor speaking time, and we have no one who has written any communication that they want to address the board, so we move on to our student representative. Good evening, Aubrey.
It's been an exciting night. I'm
cross country and a Cobbles alum. So also exciting news is homecoming's next week, and for our Spirit Wear Tuesday, it's Penfield, wear your best Penfield pride wear. Wednesday is a character day from any movie or TV show. Thursday is class theme, and seniors are 1980s, juniors are 1970s, sophomores are 1990s, and freshmen are millennium. And then Friday is your class color, and the seniors are black, the juniors are white, the sophomores are red, and the freshmen are gray. And then some exciting things to look forward to for homecoming weekend is the annual Powder Puff game with the girls, juniors versus seniors. And then in addition to that, they're trying to get a boys cheerleading squad going. And then at the pep rally, every class has their class song, which they sing and dance to and they choreograph before. And replacing royalty is spirit leaders. So each class will elect a spirit leader, and they'll kind of get everyone pepped up and excited during the pep rally. And in sports, field hockey had a huge win, 1-0 over Fairport last night. And on Saturday, boys won in double overtime, 1-0 against Webster Thomas. And girls soccer just won about an hour ago in double overtime against Rush Henrietta 1-0. And then Thursday is Bay Trail back to school night. And then lastly, tomorrow the 5-week reports are due for the high school.
All right, thank you. Board members, any questions or comments for Aubrey? Yes, Catherine.
You just said 5-week reports.
Yes, it's gone by quickly.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's my comment. Wow.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Aubrey, and we will see you at homecoming. All right, we now move on to superintendent's report. Dr. Putnam.
We have some student and staff honors, and then we'll turn it over as well. Dr. Sansucci will be talking about the veterans exemption update, as well as the appropriation for additional funds for the Bay Trail vermiculite removal. And we'll start with some honors, perhaps. Here we go. So the National Merit Commended Scholars, 14 Penfield High School students were recognized by the National Merit Corporation as commended students in the 2015 National Merit Program. These students placed among the top 5% of more than 1.4 million students who entered the competition by taking the PSAT and the NMSQT exam last year. And those 14 students are Catherine Cook, Sarah Cook, Abigail Coughlin, Elliot Dowd, Margaret Drake, Olivia Herman, Jack LaWatch, Matthew Moon, Catherine Pendlebury, Carolyn Rutan, Colin Spencer, Ryan Thompson, Aaron Walsh, and Catherine Yorko. So just a great honor for those students, and 14 is a wonderful number for top 5 out of 1.4 million students. And I do have to admit, because being a board member is hard work, so Carolyn Rutan, being a daughter of one of our board members, is very nice to be up there. So. We have another student honor, and this one I think is really cool and unique. I've never seen it before. PHS senior Colin O'Malley was one of 3 EMCC culinary arts students selected out of a large number of kids that attend EMCC from many districts to participate in a taping of the Food Network program Restaurant Impossible at Papa C's Eastside Cafe in Fairport. The students met celebrity chef Robert Irvine and worked in the kitchen helping prepare some of the food for the new menu. The show will air sometime in the next few months. They haven't given us a formal date yet, but once we get that, we'll pass that information on along. So just a really neat honor for one of our students. Quick thinking. Kudos to Bay Trail student Jose Reyes and hall monitor John Yannick for their quick action when a Bay Trail student was choking during lunch. Jose saw fellow student Dan Stapleton choking and quickly notified Mr. Yannick, who was able to assist Dan and used a Heimlich maneuver and stop the choking and save Dan. So it's just an amazing event that really showcases Jose in terms of noticing the problem and getting an adult immediately. And Mr. Yannick, being one of our hall monitors, jumped to action. So it really is all of the adults in the building helping out and supporting all students. So just a great thing we wanted to point out to the board and the community. And our own PHS vocal music teacher, Diane Abrahamian, has been named one of 25 semifinalists for the Grammy Music Educator Award by the Recording Academy and Grammy Foundation. More than 7,000 nominations were received for the award, which were narrowed down to 222 quarterfinalists and now 25 semifinalists. 10 finalists will be announced in December, and the winner will be announced during the Grammy week in February. And the winner, it doesn't say up there, but the winner is flown out to attend the Grammys in California. So just an amazing honor for our music program as a whole and for Diane and the amazing work she does as a vocal teacher here at Penfield High School.
And are they flown out with the Board of Education?
I don't know if the
All
Board of
7 members?
Education, just the president. The Board of Education might also fly out. So, yeah. So just an amazing honor. Even, I look at that, and even now, it's nationally recognized. It's been in the media, and 25 semifinalists out of 7,000 nominations. It just really is a lot to say about Penfield, and obviously Diane and the work she does with students. So those are our updates in honors, staff and student honors, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Sansusi, who's going to give us an update on the veterans exemption and what that can mean for Penfield.
Right. I just want to, rather than an update, I think really just want to begin tonight with a brief presentation to start the ball rolling for this year's conversation around the veterans exemption. So we began this conversation last year. The governor signed in December a law that was passed in the waning hours of the 2013 legislature that authorized school districts to offer a veterans exemption, property tax exemption to qualifying veterans. Now, in the past, that exemption, the exact same exemption, was available to towns, to counties, but schools were never authorized to offer it. So the decision was made by the legislature and the governor signed it. Unfortunately, too late last year for it really to be addressed. Taxable status date is in March, so we really need to have made decisions well in advance of that so that we can analyze it, make a decision, application can be made, and the process can work its way through. So we're bringing it back this year for that conversation, as are school districts all across the county, and really all across the state. There were very few districts statewide that were able to grapple with it during last year. So what is it? It is an exemption to your property taxes. That is a reduction of the amount of your property that is taxed. So eligibility is based on service during a period of war. Those periods are defined in the law. And the exemption percentages and amounts are based on whether you have to have served in time of war, but there are sort of two floor level exemptions, whether you served during time of war or if you served during time of war in a combat zone. The combat zone exemption's higher. So essentially, you get one or the other. And if you are disabled, in addition to either the war or the combat zone exemption, you would receive a service-related disability exemption. There's no income limit to this. It's not means tested. It's simply available based on a percentage of the assessed value of your home up to a cap, up to a maximum. So how does it work? What does it do? Well, certainly it lowers the tax bill for those individuals who qualify, but it increases the tax bill of all the other properties. And I think the simplest way, it's revenue neutral to the school district, but it changes who pays. And I think the easiest example would be a two-person school district that cost $100. We would each pay $50. If one of us gets a 100% exemption in school taxes, the other property now pays $100. They have a 100% increase, a $50 increase in their taxes. It's still the same $100 to run the school district. It's just who pays. And in a very similar way, this has that effect. At the county maximum, the county currently offers the exemption at the maximum. There's a schedule. Wayne County offers at a lower level, Monroe County at the highest, Penfield as a town at the highest. But based on that, based on the current highest amount, that change would be approximately 2%. We're still, I'm saying that's estimated because we're still working through this. We got the data for this for the 2014 roll from the county relatively recently, and frankly, it's an awful lot of numbers. So I'm working my way through that. I've gotten a first pass through. I'm fairly comfortable with 2%, but we'll be refining that, talking more about what that looks like at different levels, better understanding all the implications of it. Because there are numerous implications to this. In addition to the shift inside the school district, so between property taxpayers, there's also a change in star exemption, or star value rather, the value that New York State supports in terms of the star payments to the school district also changes, because as property becomes exempt, star is one of the very last exemptions applied, and if there's less assessed valuation available to apply against star, that star exemption changes as well. So there's a lot of moving parts to it. We'll want to be clear about that, and what I'm planning is for, I think, the next board meeting, some examples. We'll work through a few examples at various levels so you can see how it works. School boards had some recommendations on how this should work. And they were, I think, on point, and they're fairly well thought out. We should understand the exemption. I just explained that there's some complexity to it. We really need to have our hands around and have good data in terms of what the potential impacts to our taxpayers are. We need to understand the options. There are different levels of exemption that can be offered. And we need to understand those impacts, and we need to communicate. So before we make a decision, we'll be discussing a newsletter article and or a survey leading up to a required public hearing. There has to be a public hearing for this to be addressed. So I think that our proposal would be that over the course of the next several months, we talk about it here, we understand it, we prepare a newsletter that explains it, we ask our community for input based on a survey, and then make a decision based on that public hearing. Boards can consider this at any time. So as I mentioned, we didn't do it last year. It can be considered at any time in the future. There is currently a quirk in the law as it was passed that once many exemptions you could exit from once you, although politically that would be challenging, but it is legally possible to back out of many of the other exemptions. This one, the way it's designed, you cannot. So once in, you can't come out. I understand that during this legislative session that'll be corrected. So that's my understanding. It hasn't been done yet. So for now, at least as we sit here tonight, it's sort of getting in as a one-time choice. And then, of course, taxable status date. We need to have this all sewn up by March, well in advance of March, actually. So we propose this kind of a schedule. We've got exemptions based on the 2014 roll. So that's existing folks who have applied for the county exemption. That's new data to us because we've never seen it before. We didn't, they don't appear on our rolls. So in October, it would have to be, as Nancy's told me, towards the end of October, a mailing to explain what it is that we're considering, and then in November, perhaps the survey and a public hearing with a board decision in December. That allows enough time, I think, for the towns to be able to address anything that we might do and have it through their process, because it would have to be adopted, or it would have to be implemented by each of the 6 town assessors by that March date. Oops. There's a couple of other things that didn't make it, that arrived to us late, and so didn't make it into the PowerPoint, but you have before you in your packet. There's one item on green is a resolution that I understand that we just received in the last few days that I understand was passed by the Fairport Board and will be considered. It's making the rounds around the other Monroe County school districts. And essentially what this resolution says is that, you know, we understand and support veterans. We understand the legislature's intent with regard to wanting to offer that relief, but it sets certainly school boards in an unenviable position, and it pits one community member against the other. So really, as you read through it, it's a request by the board that if essentially this is an unfunded mandate, it's a mandate of a different kind. It's not an expense to us, but certainly it's an expense to some of our taxpayers. And so the plea in the resolution is that if you're going to do that, you should fund it, and asks that the legislature consider that. So you can read it through. Certainly, we can have lots of conversation about the appropriateness or not of that, but I think we'd want to at least consider that at a future board meeting as well. The other thing that you have in your packet is some data, and I just wanted you to have this a bit ahead of time. We'll talk about this at the next meeting as well. But I just wanted you to have some data on the level of existing exemptions and the numbers of them on the current school roll. So right now, approximately 23% of the property in the Penfield School District is already exempt from school tax. That includes some of the obvious things: municipal property, school property, and so on. But I've also highlighted in yellow items that fall into this analysis or this group of people. So the highlighted items in yellow are exemptions that are available already in one form or another to veterans, or really to any other taxpayer in the school district. We have a locally authorized exemption, a means-tested exemption of up to 50% of the assessed value of your home for limited income seniors. So that's you see there's 3 limited income senior exemptions. It's listed 3 times because each of the towns assigns a different code to it, because they may have a local exemption that's the same but at a slightly different level. They need to be able to distinguish between them. So all 3 of those are for Penfield the same. But that, again, it's a sliding scale exemption for seniors of limited income, and it caps out at 50% of the assessed valuation of the home. And then, of course, senior and basic star. So all taxpayers are entitled to the $30,000 basic star exemption and $64,200 for individuals over 65, and that's means tested as well at about $85,000. So with income below that limit, you're entitled to a $64,000 exemption of your assessed valuation, and they're additive, so you can get both, and obviously many folks do. And then there's 2 other small exemptions, one existing already for disabled individuals that's very similar to works in the same way really as the limited income senior exemption, and a single sole exemption for paraplegic veterans. So those are I think the ones in play. The star will play a role in our calculations, and to some extent that'll be driven by the senior exemption changing that star valuation. So this will be a little more clear, I think, if we take some time at the next meeting and work through a few examples so you can see how it works. I'll also have some analysis of the data we have from the county in terms of what this means, how many parcels, and so on. But I would tell you that just based on our first look through, and again, based on the county maximum, there are about 600 in the Penfield School District. So that's all 6 towns, our portions of the 6 towns and both Monroe and Wayne County, there are 675 wartime exemptions, 448 combat exemptions, so that's a total of about, a total of 1,123 folks qualifying. And of those 1,100 folks, 101 receive an additional disabled exemption. The total assessed valuation of those exemptions is about $39.5 million. So potentially this is a significant change. It will drive, as I said earlier, about 2% change in the tax rate, not the levy, but the rate. So that would mean if our school tax rate went up, or for our underlying budget at the 2% tax cap amount, that's what we asked for the budget, the tax bill for an individual not receiving the exemption would be up 4 because they're paying their share of the new exemptions. So we obviously an important conversation we'll need to think carefully through. Are there any questions? Some I may be able to answer, some I maybe can't, but it'll help guide our next conversation in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mark. Board members, questions or comments? Mark?
The list of exemptions you have here, who enacted these exemptions in general? And because really what I'm getting at is someone enacting an exemption, the state can do this, but like the town, are they enacting an exemption that also reduces that property value for the purposes of the district tax, or are they only doing it for the town tax?
Most of them, if they're optional, the school district would have had to have offered it. Many of them are statutory in real property tax law, and you don't really have a choice. There are, like for example, the STAR exemptions you see here, you don't have a choice whether to offer it or not. There are a few that you do. The most notable one probably and most relevant to this conversation is that exemption for limited income seniors. It's been some time, but that exemption's been in place. That's voluntary to the school district. And when the levels change, because periodically the legislature will change the qualifying income levels, and when that changes, we will bring it back to the school board, and boards have made the decision whether or not to increase the level of exemption or not. So that's been addressed by us numerous times. That's the most significant voluntary one. The limited income disability exemption was voluntary as a piece of policy adopted by the board. The others are not. The others are not optional to you. Does that help?
Yeah, so what you're saying is the ones that are voluntary, we've adopted.
You said yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional questions or comments? John?
I'm just curious what the interdenominational center is on that list.
Okay, you know what? I couldn't have told you until I got this data from, I now have a huge spreadsheet, I can look it up, but I don't know off the top of my head.
I mean, because it's like everything else is covered that might be religious related.
Right,
And that just jumps out, it's a big piece of property.
I
can't think of what it is.
I can't either, I'd be happy to look it up.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay, thank you. The next item on the presentation agenda, it has to do with Bay Trail gym renovations. We've talked about this at previous board meetings. You've kind of been along for the ride as we've struggled with these renovations. This has to do with the project at renovating Bay Trail Gymnasium, and there was also some Scribner roofing as part of it. As you know, the contractors encountered vermiculite in the wall spaces of the gymnasium. Vermiculite is familiar to most of us as a component of potting soil. It's a naturally occurring material. It's in and of itself non-hazardous. It's used as insulating material quite commonly because it's fireproof. Bugs don't like it. But it may contain asbestos. There was one particular mine where this material was mined that had a vein of naturally occurring asbestos through it. So essentially vermiculite may be contaminated with asbestos, and it's impossible for us for us or anyone really to know, because the vermiculite you test here might not have the asbestos, but over here it may. And because of that concern and because of the safety hazards posed by asbestos, SED's mandated that all vermiculite is to be treated as if it contains asbestos. So we've talked about schedule at various points in the past. It's certainly impacted our schedule. It's also impacted our budget with regard to the removal and the management of the asbestos. By the time we're done with this project, we will not have removed it in its entirety at all, but we need to manage it in an appropriate fashion as we make changes to the walls in the gym space. So you see here two pictures. The upper left one just shows is a fairly boring photo of the walls of the gymnasium, but you can see all the material that's attached to the walls, piping, wires, clocks. There are penetrations into the wall for the beams that you see at the top. Every one of those is potentially exposes the vermiculite, and you can see in the photo to the bottom right a hole in the wall, and that material that you see inside the drilled hole where something's been removed is in fact the vermiculite itself. So what that means is it needs to be contained, and I think you're familiar with the those of you that have toured schools during construction have seen the asbestos tenting that goes up. It's the polyurethane rooms that are built around the areas. The air flows contained and filtered in and out of the space. Folks wash as they go in and out of it. It safely contains and allows for the management of the material in a controlled environment. So here you see that work going on at Bay Trail. Another view of that at the Bay Trail Gymnasium. Oops, and I thought I had another one, but I don't. So you get a sense of the scope of this, and really that work is what drives the cost of the removal of it. That's posed a problem for our budget. It wasn't a known condition. We have an asbestos management plan that identifies all the asbestos in the school district. It's updated every 6 months by an inspector to make sure that the asbestos that we do have, that we know about, is maintained in a way that's safe, so floor tile, joints, and so on. That plan did not show any of this in place, wasn't known. We've reviewed the plans of from 1964 for the gymnasium, and those drawings don't show any vermiculite. And most tellingly, I think those of you that lived through the big capital project, we did about $20 million worth of work at Bay Trail, significant amounts of demolition, and never. This is our first contact with vermiculite, so we got through that entire project without this issue. But here we are. Those costs weren't included in the budget, but because it is, later in the agenda tonight, we'll be asking you to amend the budget of that project to afford the management of it and the removal of it where necessary. So it's an unknown expense. It affects health and safety. So under those conditions, under those specific conditions, the board can declare it an ordinary contingent expense, which allows you to withdraw from your fund balance, essentially your rainy day fund, funds to address the problem. We're requesting $475,000. Of that, I think the important thing to remember here is that 70% of that cost will be eligible for state aid. We're currently at 169. We're about a third of the way through the project, so we want to be able to be sure to be able to complete it. The funds would be drawn from unreserved fund balance. We've had, Alan and I were speaking just before the meeting. He's had a conversation with SED with regards to this. Obviously, one of our concerns is the vermiculite requirement is a requirement of SED. But to their credit, they also, they're paying the majority of the cost of this through that state aid reimbursement. We wanted to make sure they were comfortable with where we were at, and that they understood what we were proposing, and based on today's conversation, they're on board as well. I'm sorry. So you see later in the agenda, there's some detail. You would be declaring this a matter, an unknown expense, an emergency affecting health and safety, and we'll be asking for that amendment. The other part of this, just before I answer any questions you might have, is the other end of this is schedule. And a issue like this impacts both money and schedule, and this has certainly done both. So where we're at right now is it's getting colder every day, and we need to have that instructional space back by the time winter sets in full. So we'll be doing really what we have to do, the bare minimum of what we have to do to be able to reclaim the space. Our deadline is November. We've been told that really we cannot go any past that. So we have a couple of weeks left to go to get done what we have to. The gym is not going to be completed in that amount of time. We'll have to come back in the spring once the weather changes and get back at it again to finish it up. But that's our plan at this point. Are there any questions? Can I amplify anything I said?
Thank you, Mark. Board members, any questions or comments? Catherine, yes.
A couple comments. Mark, I want to thank you very much for providing that clarification. I found this whole price tag to be just shocking. But with that explanation of the 70% state aid reimbursement, that alleviates some of my concern to the district.
And I thank you for the question, because as I was talking about with Alan, we knew that. We just didn't say that.
Oh,
and
okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so your question was on point. We realized that we needed to express that and let everybody know that. And so I thank you for the question.
Sure. And so I appreciate that clarification, because I don't, as much as I don't like this hiccup in the whole project, I don't have that shocking concern that I had before. So I do appreciate that, and that was my comment.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, Lisa.
Oh, sorry. I think you mentioned that during this project, Mark, we're not actually cleaning or removing the vermiculite. So what would
Right.
that mean going forward for projects in the gym?
There will be, well, it'll have to be addressed. So it's going to get removed in some spots. So where we're doing wall penetrations, like putting in a new door, for example, we're not going to be able to avoid removing some of it. But there's going to be parts of the walls that aren't touched where it won't be removed. What will have to happen then is it'll go on our HERA management plan, and in future capital projects, the knowledge of that will just have to be cooked into the planning, and that means it'll also be included in the schedule, and we'll know that we have to do abatement, and it just becomes another project. For example, like any other project where we know we have asbestos ceilings, floor tile, that kind of thing, it becomes part of what we have to deal with. So, yeah, it's not going to go away.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Right. Mark, in one of your slides, I think the one that is right after the pictures, it says, a review of the original 1964 drawings does not indicate vermiculite in the wall cavities. Is this something like they would put, I don't know, fine print or something like that on the plan? Hello, we have vermiculite in the...
Oh, well, I don't know. I would ask Alan, but I think that what we're saying is that when you look at those wall drawings, there's nothing called out for those to be insulated or those to be insulated with vermiculite. If you follow what I say, those plans would show the walls, the wall construction, details of how they're supposed to be put together, and there's nothing in that shows vermiculite.
And there was no way for us to know, I mean, ahead of time? I don't like surprises.
Unfortunately, they do exist, so but I'll let Alan.
Sure, I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to actually answer that question, because we have a lot of individuals on this project who have been doing construction work for 30 years that have not encountered it to this level. I can tell you, talking to my other counterparts, that only one was able to tell me that they've ran into it before, and that was Auburn Schools, and they ran into the same issue we recently had. They were doing a gymnasium project, they found it, and they had to do the same remediation efforts that we're doing. It has been very uncommon to find this condition for this type of environment. So that's why it really was unknown. It really was something that we wouldn't have normally tested for in the wall cavities. So it's unusual.
So do we have it somewhere else in the district, just to know?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Oh, so it'll be another
We don't
surprise,
know.
I guess.
I mean, which this has been, in some degree, it's actually good to know this at this point, so in the future, anything that we may look at for that type of vintage, to look at potentially sampling the wall, see if we have that material, and then, therefore, if we're going to develop a project, include the appropriate cost for the remediation at conceptual level.
Okay, and is this going to disrupt at all the instruction, the physical education classes, or anything like that?
It shouldn't. One of the things that won't be done when we move back in will be refinishing the floor. There's just absolutely no time for that. So they'll be dealing with temporary striping, and you know, it's not going to be done. But Mary Beth Walker and Pete Shambo have been along for they're at all the meetings. They've been along for this ride. They're well aware of what's going on, and so we'll just have to work around what we have to.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Board members, we do have a resolution later on in the agenda to authorize this additional spending. Mark, thank you for your patience and allowing us to bring this here this evening rather than the emergency meeting we were going to have.
Not at
I
all.
think it's important for the community to be able to see it and get all the details, of the additional funds we are about to use. Thank you.
Just one last item. The next item on your agenda, and this is short, is simply the approval of the lease. So we've talked about this in the past. We received notice from the town today that they've moved forward with their approval, so they have a 30-day window. Now, without objection, they'll be moving forward with that. So tonight on your agenda, we also have approval for the lease of the sewer treatment facility at Channing Philbrook Park. The terms are what we discussed. We're just ready to ask tonight, finally, for that approval. So,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Board members, any questions or comments about this lease approval? No? All right, very well. So this concludes superintendent's reports.
Yes.
And we are now on page 3 of the agenda, board business, facilities. So, and this brings us to the last item that was in Mark's presentation, the Channing Philbrook Park Sewage Treatment Building Resolution. So you have a full description of what this project, of what the resolution is calling for in your agenda. I'm not going to read the whole thing for you, and I'm just going to ask for a motion that the superintendent of school is hereby authorized to negotiate final terms and conditions and to enter into a lease with the town of Penfield for use of the facilities in Channing Philbrook Park as described in your agenda. Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. Financial items. Resolution for additional funds for the Bay Trail vermiculite removal. Again, we've talked briefly about this at our last meeting. Mark gave us more details and pictures and numbers now, so I want to move on to page 5 for the resolution. And ask please to have a motion on this resolution. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education declares that the remediation work of vermiculite materials in the Bay Trail Gymnasium walls is Type 2 action under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and therefore not subject to further review. That the Board of Education hereby finds pursuant to the education law that the remediation of the vermiculite installation material in the Bay Trail Gymnasium walls is essential for protection of the health and safety of the students and staff and for protection of the district's property, and hereby declares the project to be an ordinary contingent expense hereinafter project. The maximum estimated cost of the project, as determined by Campus Construction Management, Project Construction Manager, and SCI Design, Project Architect, is $475,000 in total. The project will be funded by the use of unassigned general fund balance. The superintendent of schools and all officers and employees of the district are hereby authorized and directed to take all steps reasonably necessary or appropriate to complete the project and to carry out the intention of this resolution. May I have a motion, please, that this resolution be approved?
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you. And this resolution shall take effect immediately. We now move on to policy review, and we have a policy that is here for our first reading, and it's 7411, Extracurricular and Athletic Code of Conduct. And Camille, are you going to talk about this?
Yes. This is up for first read because there are a few changes to the policy. It's a good example of two of the reasons that we update a policy. It's on. One being that as we go through our policies, we review them, and sometimes they're a little out of date or they don't match our current philosophy and practice, and that was the case with this policy. And the other reason we update them, as we've gone through the manual, we're trying to take regulation out of the policy and put them into regulations. So the policies are more general overall statements, and then the regulations are sort of the nuts and bolts of how that policy will be administered by the administration. So, and also just to point out, this is not the code of conduct. This is our policy that we will have a code of conduct, but generally for school districts, code of conduct sort of stand alone. So that's why it's up for first read.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments? Right, so this will be posted on our website for the public to be able to check it out. And if we have any, we get any comments, we look at it again, definitely at our next meeting before we approve it. We now move on to our emergency plan approval. Pursuant to Commissioners' Regulations, Section 155.17E3, the district held the required public hearing for the Emergency Response Manual on August 26, 2014. It has been available for public comment for 30 days and must now be adopted by the Board of Education. May I have a motion, please, that the Emergency Response Manual be approved as presented on August 26, 2014 per Commissioners' Regulation, Section 155.17E3.
Second.
Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, not opposed. Thank you. President's remark, I have none this evening. And unfinished business, Mark, I think this is your portion of the agenda, the review of the New York State School Board Association resolutions.
Yes, the New York State School Board Association has 11 resolutions that are new. There's one that they're re-approving that has a sunset, and then there's a bylaws amendment. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but I'll just read out the titles: Cultural Diversity, Bylaws Amendment, Article 2, supporting RICs for data storage, supporting state aid for professional development, supporting full-day kindergarten, supporting increased funding for pre-kindergarten, opposing educator bonuses, supporting cap relief for distressed districts, supporting Common Core teacher certificate alignment, supporting the use of student performance in APR, and then the Affordable Care Act has been withdrawn, annual school budget, education and vote, and the Medicare premiums reimbursement under NY SHIP. So it's just interesting to note amongst all of these is usual variety, but there are several. There's basically 4 that's around funding, and it's basically asking the state for funding for when you have specific initiatives such as full-day K, pre-K, professional development for Common Core. And then there's 2 that are basically around the Common Core in general, which are teacher certification alignment. So when the teacher gets certified, that certification should be aligned with Common Core. And then the use of the student performance in the APPR. So those are what we'll be discussing and voting upon at the annual convention.
All right, thank you, Mark. Board members, any questions or comments? Yes, Catherine.
Comment, Mark, about the use of student performance in APPR, just as a comment that this would not necessarily it may or may not apply to Penfield, but I think of in terms of the city school district where teacher performance is aligned with how well the students do, and so I just think that's a concern with that particular resolution.
Well, and that's a good point. There's two parts to this, if you want to think about it. One is, should you do it? And the other is how you should do it.
Okay.
What this resolution is saying is that we think that, or the authors of the resolution think that it should still be used as a component of teacher evaluation. What it doesn't say is how you use it. That's what's managed at a district level.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's not telling you how you use that data and how you evaluate the teacher against it. It's just telling you that we think that's a meaningful metric that should still be considered.
Okay. Now, when you read the rationale, is that as clear as you just explained it? Because I didn't quite see that.
I think what it doesn't cover is the how part. It covers the merits of using that student performance as a metric.
Right.
And what's often overlooked is implementation. You have great ideas, even mediocre ideas. It's how it's implemented which is really drives success.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that's not addressed really here because it's addressed at the district level. And that's where some districts do well and some don't. I mean, it's how well the districts implement the things they have to do.
Okay.
But that's, again, a district issue, not a New York State School Board Association issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, Mark, was there any resolution that Area 2 did not recommend NYSBA's position on?
Yes, there was one, which was let me go back to that page. There was the one that did not recommend, which was the annual school board budget election and vote. What that's basically saying is instead of having our election in May, we would have our election in November along with all the other elections, aside from the fact that we would get kind of buried in the morass of normal politics. That also includes the timing of our budget. That means we would have to manage our budget cycle so the public would vote on it in November for the following year. So it would be a huge lead time. And the more lead time you have, the more opportunity there is for unforeseen events to occur that we would have to adjust our budget for, such as state legislature creating new rules. So that's the one that is I would say is definitely not recommended.
Okay. All right. Yes, Joe.
This has been out there for a while. There's some groups that are not aligned with education that believe uniting these elections is in the best interest of everybody in the state. And in the past few years, we've talked about it, saying, no, we don't want to be aligned with election of parties. And we want to be neutral, and our budgets are different and all of that. And so it really is important, I think, again, that we keep that separate. And I'm glad they felt that way again, because this will come back every year, because some just believe everything should be in one boat, but we would clearly be lost in the political aspect of that.
Okay. Thank you. I have an additional question. Were there any comments by David Little regarding the Constitution Convention, or?
No, that didn't come up. There were no comments about that at this forum.
They didn't talk about the committee or anything. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mark. So I guess you'll be representing us at New York State School Board during the business meeting and voting on those resolutions with the rest of the delegates. All right. Thank you. And there being no further business, we have no new business. May I have a motion, please, that the meeting be adjourned at 8:17?
Second.
Questions or comments? Thank you. All those in favor? 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.